I woke before dawn. 4:12 a.m. The clock glowed red against the dark, the same time I'd stared at for years, wishing my life felt different. But this morning was not like the others. This morning, I was done wishing. She lay beside me, turned away, her body a quiet wall that had divided us for decades. There was a time when I would have reached out, brushed her hair from her shoulder, whispered good morning. Now, even her breathing felt like a reminder of everything I'd lost. Softness, warmth, connection. I stared at the ceiling, feeling every heartbeat like a hammer against a locked door inside my chest. I knew what waited beyond it. Freedom, pain, maybe peace. But first I had to walk through it. The bag was ready. Black canvas, scuffed from years of business trips that always led back to the same emptiness. Inside were the essentials. A few shirts, jeans, boots, the leather jacket I bought long before marriage turned me into a ghost. Every item I packed felt like a confession. This is what I choose to carry, and this is what I'm finally leaving behind. For months, I'd been building an escape out of tiny, invisible actions. Quiet transfers, closed accounts, digital footprints swept away. I learned to hide in plain sight because that's what she taught me, how to be unseen even when standing right in front of someone. When I sat up, the room felt colder than usual, like the walls themselves knew. I whispered under my breath, no more pretending. Downstairs, I turned on one dim light. The kitchen looked exactly like it always did. Spotless, controlled, lifeless. Every surface screamed of her order, her perfection. And yet, under all that polish, something had rotted, us. I lined the keys neatly on the table. House, car, storage, safety box. Every key to a world that no longer fit. Then I slipped off my wedding ring, a simple band worn smooth from years of meaningless routine, and set it beside the note. I didn't write much, just enough to prove I existed before disappearing. Everything's taken care of. You don't owe me anything. I just can't live like this anymore. I stared at the words until they blurred. That was our marriage in one line, blurry, polite, distant. Coffee sat waiting in the pot from last night. I didn't pour any. I didn't want her scent or her habits in my lungs anymore. I wanted the first breath of my new life to be clean, unfiltered by her world. She'd say I ran away. She'd tell her friends I lost it, that the pressure broke me. She'd make it sound tragic, maybe even dramatic enough to earn sympathy. But the truth is simpler. I stopped begging to be seen. The kids were grown, tuition paid, futures secure. I'd kept my promises, all of them, even when she didn't keep hers. There was nothing left binding me to this house but memories that suffocated me a little more each day. I looked around one last time. Every photo on the wall felt like a lie we posed for. Two smiling strangers holding the weight of a story that had already ended. I picked up the bag, took one long breath, and stepped toward the door. The moment I crossed that threshold, I felt something shift, not relief, not joy, but the kind of silence that comes right after a storm. My chest hurt like hell, but it was the kind of pain that meant something was finally healing. By sunrise, I was on the highway heading west. The sky burned orange in my rearview mirror, the house shrinking behind me until it was nothing more than a memory, a ghost I didn't have to feed anymore. And for the first time in 20 years, I didn't feel small, I didn't feel invisible, I just felt gone. The road stretched in front of me like an unfinished sentence, and for once, I didn't care how it ended. No music, no destination on the GPS, just miles. I drove until the state line signs changed colors, and the air started to taste like dust and heat. Somewhere between one border and the next, I stopped checking mirrors. Freedom didn't feel the way I imagined. It wasn't loud or victorious, it was quiet, too quiet, and heavy in places I didn't expect. Every mile was a question. What now? I found a small town on the edge of nowhere, the kind of place that looked half forgotten by the rest of the world. A motel sat behind a diner, neon light buzzing even in daylight. I rented a room under a name I'd practiced writing until it felt real, Daniel Cross. The clerk didn't look twice, anonymity was cheap out here. Inside, the room smelled like cleaning powder and second chances. I dropped the bag on the floor and stared at the walls. No family photos, no reminders, just silence big enough to hear my own heartbeat. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt empty. Freedom, it turns out, doesn't erase loneliness. It just removes the audience for it. For the first few days, I drifted, ate at the diner, walked the main street, watched strangers talk about weather and football and lives small enough to fit inside one county. Nobody cared who I used to be, and that anonymity both saved me and scared me. Then I found work. A garage on the edge of town had a help-wanted sign sun-bleached to pale orange. The owner, Hank, was old enough to have seen every mistake twice. He didn't ask for a resume, he asked if I could show up on time and learn fast. I said yes. That first week, my hands blistered. Office skin meeting real labor. Wrenches, grease, metal that fought back. By Friday, the blisters broke, bled, and hardened. My body hurt in honest ways spreadsheets never could. There was peace in that, pain with purpose. At night, I sat outside the motel, drinking cheap coffee and letting the desert wind scrape thoughts out of my head. I replayed 20 years of words I'd never said, arguments I never finished, apologies I'd buried under compromise. Every memory had an aftertaste of exhaustion. I thought about calling my sons, then stopped. What would I say? Hey, it's Dad. I finally did what I should have done before you were old enough to notice how miserable I was. They'd side with her at first. Everyone always does. She's the one who smiles for pictures. I was the one who looked tired in the background. Still, I kept my promise. Tuition paid, health insurance active, birthdays remembered from a distance. Responsibility didn't end when love did. One night, exhaustion won. I fell asleep sitting up, work boots still on, dreams full of echoes, her laugh at someone else's joke, the hollow sound of doors closing behind me. I woke sweating, angry that she could still reach me from hundreds of miles away. The next morning, Hank tossed me a set of shop keys, said, "You open tomorrow." Just like that, trust handed over without ceremony. It felt foreign, someone seeing value in me without needing proof. I started arriving early, staying late. Fixed engines, balanced books, cleaned up after closing. Work became a rhythm, and rhythm kept the ghosts quiet. Weeks turned into months. The town learned my new name, and I learned how to live small. Pay rent, buy groceries, sleep, repeat. Simple things, but each one felt like reclaiming territory inside myself. And yet, sometimes the silence hit hard. I'd catch myself looking at couples passing by, laughter spilling easy between them, and feel something twist. Not envy exactly, just the ache of what could have been if either of us had known how to listen. There were days I missed her, though I hated admitting it. Not the woman she became, but the girl she used to be, the one who danced barefoot in the kitchen before ambition hardened her voice. Maybe I missed who I was when she still looked at me like I mattered. Anger came and went like weather. Some mornings I woke furious that I'd wasted half my life on a marriage that hollowed me out. Other mornings I felt almost grateful to have survived it, grateful that the worst was behind me. Freedom kept testing me. Every decision, what to eat, where to go, who to be, was mine alone. That kind of ownership is intoxicating and terrifying. There's no one left to blame when you fail. I started keeping a notebook, not a journal, just fragments, thoughts that burned too long in my head. Lines like, "You can't fix someone who doesn't see they're broken." Love shouldn't feel like disappearing. Sometimes forgiveness is the only way to stop bleeding. I didn't know who I was writing to. Maybe the man I used to be. Maybe the man I was trying to become. Months later, a letter came, forwarded through an old contact. Her handwriting, neat, perfect, infuriating. She wrote that the house felt empty, that the neighbors asked questions, that she hoped I was getting help. Getting help. That was her way of saying you're the problem. Even in absence, she needed the story to fit her version of truth. I tore the letter in half, then felt guilty and taped it back together just to remind myself how broken things never look the same after you try to fix them. Work grew busier. Hank let me handle customers. I caught myself smiling again, actual laughter spilling out when I least expected it. I wasn't healed, but I was alive. Sometimes healing doesn't look like joy. It looks like surviving another sunrise without hating yourself. Then one evening, as the sun dropped behind the mountains, I felt something shift. I realized I hadn't thought about her all day, not once. The anger was fading, not gone, but dull enough to live with. I took that as progress. Still, there was one truth I couldn't escape. You don't walk away from 20 years without dragging pieces of it with you. Freedom has a cost, and the bill arrives in moments of quiet when you least expect it. But I paid it. Every damn day I paid it, and somehow that payment started to feel like peace. A year passed before I realized I'd built a life that no longer needed running from. The garage was mine now. Hank sold it, retired to somewhere cooler, and left me with a handshake that meant more than any contract I'd ever signed. I renamed the place Cross & Company Repairs, though most people just called it the shop. I liked the simplicity, a name that sounded like work, not history. Business was steady, the kind of steady that gives you enough time to think, which is both blessing and curse. Some days I worked 12 hours just to drown out thought. Other days I caught myself pausing mid-repair, realizing that for the first time in decades I was genuinely proud of something I'd built with my own hands. Then came the phone call, unknown number, mid-morning. I almost didn't answer. When I did, a voice I hadn't heard in months slipped through the static. "Dad, it's Evan." For a second I couldn't speak. My oldest boy. He sounded older, calmer, like the distance between us had matured him overnight. He told me his mother was sick. Ovarian cancer, stage 3. Surgery scheduled next week. The words hung in the air, heavy and unreal. Sick, cancer. My ex-wife, the woman I'd hated, pitied, loved, and finally left, was fighting for her life. He said she didn't ask me to come, only wondered if I'd care. That question hit harder than any insult she'd ever thrown. Did I care, after everything? I told him I needed time to think, but I already knew there was no choice. Some debts aren't about justice, they're about humanity. 2 days later, I locked up the shop and drove west. The same highway I'd escaped on now carried me back like a reluctant pilgrim. Every mile felt heavier. The anger I thought I'd buried began to stir, whispering all the old lines. She hurt you. She doesn't deserve you. But another voice, quieter, steadier, kept answering. Maybe forgiveness isn't for her. Maybe it's for you. I reached the hospital just before sunset. She was in a small room filled with machines that hummed softly, keeping rhythm with her breathing. Her hair was gone, her face pale, smaller than I remembered. The arrogance that once filled every inch of her posture was gone too, replaced by something raw and human. When she saw me, tears came instantly. "You came," she whispered. I sat beside her bed and said, "I did." There was no speech prepared, no dramatic apology waiting in my throat. Just silence, heavy with everything we'd never said. She reached for my hand, thin fingers, trembling, and for the first time in decades, I didn't pull away. We talked for hours, about the boys, about the years we lost, about the things we both did wrong but were too proud to admit. She said she was sorry, really said it, not the polished apology she used to deliver when she wanted the conversation to end. This one came from somewhere deeper, somewhere terrified. I told her I forgave her, not because she earned it, but because carrying the weight any longer would destroy me. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't about rewriting the past. It's about choosing not to let it poison what's left of you. When the nurse came to wheel her away for tests, I stood and squeezed her hand. "You fight," I told her. "Fight for yourself this time." She nodded, tears still running, and whispered, "Thank you." That night I couldn't sleep. I walked the hospital parking lot until the sky turned silver with morning. For the first time, I didn't feel anger when I thought of her. I felt compassion, strange, quiet, unshakable compassion. After the surgery, I left without saying goodbye. I didn't want her to feel obligated to perform gratitude. I called the billing office instead and arranged to pay what insurance wouldn't cover. She'd never know it was me. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because mercy is lighter to carry than resentment. Months later, a letter arrived at the shop, her handwriting, fragile now, softer. She wrote that the surgery worked, that she was learning to live smaller, slower, freer. She wrote, "You saved me in ways you'll never understand. I hope you're finally at peace." I folded the letter, slid it into my toolbox under the wrenches, and left it there. A reminder that closure sometimes arrives as quietly as forgiveness itself. Years passed. The shop grew. I hired apprentices, taught them how to fix engines and keep their word. On weekends, my sons visited. We cooked, argued about baseball, and laughed until the air felt new again. They told me their mother was volunteering at a cancer center, helping women navigate treatment. She was happy, they said. Smaller life, bigger heart. Good. That's all I ever wanted for either of us, to stop pretending and start living honestly. Sometimes, late at night, I sit behind the shop, watching the desert stars rise over the dark hills. The silence doesn't scare me anymore. It feels earned. I think about the man I used to be, the one who woke before dawn, packed his bag, and left everything he'd built because he couldn't breathe. I want to tell him it's okay, that the road he feared would swallow him actually led him home, not back to her, not back to the house, back to himself. Forgiveness didn't erase the past. It just stopped it from owning my future, and in that quiet beneath the wide American sky, I finally understood. Leaving wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of becoming someone who could look in the mirror and see a whole man again,